Have you tried ink smooshing with brush pens? In this video, I show you how. Hello there, Michelle Shorts here with Terrific Tags with Michelle. Today I have a tag to share with you using the ink smooshing technique with Hawaiian Shores pens. I will also turn the tag into a card using the leftover pieces for an eclipse look. So let's get started. This is the Painter Flower Rose Outline stamp set, such a beautiful image, and it's quite large, so for the tag it's going to overhang each side. But that will get cut off when I make it into a tag. But we're going to use the leftover pieces like I said, so we're going to use the whole image in the end. I'm stamping the stamp with Obsidian Pigment Ink onto some watercolour paper. I'm using watercolour paper today because I am going to add some water to it and I don't want it to warp too much. So I'm just going to double stamp the image just so that I get a really nice dark impression, and this ink is waterproof once dry. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. Once dry, I can then do the ink smooshing on top. So I'm going to take a piece of packaging. This is just some stamp packaging. You could use acetate. Anything that is malleable but is see-through is really helpful. And I'm going to add the ink smooshing with the Hawaiian Shores brush and fine tip pens. I really love these pens. They are water reactive or water based and they have a fine tip end to them. We're not using that today, but I wanted to show you the fine tip, perfect for adding small details, and then also a brush tip as well, which is the side that we are going to use today. So I've added a piece of printer paper underneath the packaging just so that you can see the colour easily, and I've drawn a kind of a scribble onto the packaging, and then using the fine mister bottle I'm just spraying a very light amount of water on top. I'm spraying from quite high up because I don't want to get the piece too wet. When I turn it over to do the ink smooshing like you can see here, I don't want all of the ink to just run off, so I don't want it to be too wet, but I want it to be wet enough that it's going to blend with all of the different colours that I add on top. But I do want some of it to be quite dry so that I get that splattery look. I personally really like the splattery look, but you can add as much or as little water as you want. And I tend to do each colour twice just so that I get kind of the coverage that I want. I do really love ink smooshing because you get that splattery effect. You can't control it a massive amount, but you can control it somewhat because you can see through that packaging and you can just pounce that onto the cardstock and add the colours where you want them to go. So I'm going to go through the rainbow here. I did get a little bit of red where I didn't want it, so I'm just using a cloth just to pick that up. And then I'm also drying off the packaging in between the different colours. So the first colour I used was crimson, and then I'm going in here with autumn blaze, which is a really pretty orange shade. So I'm starting off, as you can see there, in the top left hand corner and finishing in the bottom right hand corner with the purple. So I do want these two colours to blend quite nicely. This first lot here was quite dry, so it is definitely giving that splattery look. And then I'm going to add a little bit more water on this time to kind of blend them together, but as I lift that up you can see that the water and the ink just kind of splattered onto the page. It's absolutely fine, I can pick it up with that cloth, but that is what I try to avoid most of the time. But it is quite nice to actually blend the colours together as well. For the yellow I'm using maple yellow. So while I'm just going through this, I thought that I would speak to you a little bit about ink smooshing. Like I said, I really love the technique and I love to do it this way rather than pouncing the cardstock onto the ink. I just find it quite helpful because I can, like I said, control it slightly because I can see what I'm doing to a certain extent. You do still get that nice organic look, which personally I do really like. This colour here is Firefly, which is one of the lighter greens, and I do go in a little bit later with the Just Green just to darken some of that up slightly. I'm going to jump ahead after the green to add in the purple, which is Ultraviolet. This is just so that I can make sure that I get the violet in. I personally really love purple, and sometimes if I'm going too far ahead I might miss out that colour, so I really wanted to make sure that I could get that colour in. As it turned out, I did actually have quite a big gap between the green and the purple, and when I next go in with the blue I accidentally put it in the wrong place, and instead of putting it next to the green I actually put it next to the purple instead. So it's going to take me a little while here to go through adding in all of the blue again, and once I've added in the lighter blue I do go in with the Persian blue just to darken that up between the lighter blue and the purple. So you can do this technique with ink pads, you could do it with traditional watercolours, you could do it with watercolour pens, anything really that you're going to add water to would work with this. I often do it with ink pads, but it's quite nice with these pens because I'm actually kind of scribbling, as you can see, kind of in a line, because that's how the image kind of works. But you could scribble in any shape you wanted to be able to manipulate where you're going to place it on the image, which I think is quite helpful. So I've added a little bit of purple into the darker blue, the Persian blue, just to darken that up slightly, so there is a bit more of a distinction between that lighter blue and the darker blue. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on ink smooshing. Do you enjoy doing it? It is definitely a technique that you don't have a huge amount of control with, kind of like alcohol inks, but I do really like the look. So I'd love to hear if you like ink smooshing, and do you like doing it in this way with a piece of packaging so that you can control it slightly, or do you like to just go all out and kind of press the cardstock sort of upside down into ink, which again I do really enjoy, but it's just a different look. So that's that panel. I'm going to set that aside to dry while I work on the sentiment. So I'm taking the Happy Birthday sentiment from the Sentiment Strips 3 set, and I'm going to stamp that down onto some black cardstock, and I'm going to heat emboss that. So I'm just using an anti-static powder tool to get rid of any static on that cardstock and brushing the excess away. I can ink up the stamp with Embossing Ink, which is a clear sticky ink, and then I'm going to apply some pure crisp white embossing powder on top. I'm going to heat set that until it's completely melted, making sure not to add too much heat onto that, and I'm going to cut that into a strip. I've now got my panel here, and I'm using the Terrific Tags dies, and I'm going to cut that into the panel. So in this instance I want the tag to be right in the middle. You could do it anywhere on the panel that you wanted to, but because I know that I'm going to make this into a card later, I thought that it would make the most use out of the card panel as a whole to cut it from the middle. The panel did warp slightly because of the water that I added on top, but when I run it through the die cutting machine, that did flatten that out. So now I've got that piece here that we're going to use a little bit later, but for now I'm going to finish off this tag, and I do think it looks really pretty as is. I'm going to add another tag onto the back. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I like to do this. I've cut another tag from some white cardstock, and I'm just placing that on the back of this tag. Not only does it give it some stability, it also makes it so that it's nice and clean on the back of the tag so that I can write a message. I've got my sentiment here that I've cut into a strip, and I'm just adding some instant dimension foam tape onto the back of that, just so that I can pop that up onto the tag. And I'm just using the micro tip tweezers here just to help me out with the placement of that. Once I'm happy with where it's going to be, I can press that down onto the tag. And I haven't added the foam tape onto the left hand side where it overlaps that tag. I wanted to add some embellishments, so I'm using the Essential Black and White Enamel Dots set, and I'm just adding some of the black enamel dots onto the tag. I really love black and white with rainbow colours. I think it's quite striking, so I wanted to keep with that theme here. So I'm just adding 3 of those onto the tag. And then I can add some twine through the top of the tag. I don't like to leave my tags naked, so I've added that on top through the hole at the top and tied it in a bow. And that's the tag completed. But like I said, I want to create this into a card as well. So I've got an A2 sized white card base here, which is a finished size of 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. And I'm just adding some glue tape onto the back of the panel here. Just making sure to add a lot of that tape on the back because like I said, it did get a little bit warped. And then I can add that onto the card base, just lining those both up. Taking my time just to make sure that they're lined up. And then I can use the bone folder just to reinforce that top edge. I've then cut another 4 tags. I've cut 3 from plain white cardstock and 1 from watercolour paper. In my head, I thought that it would probably make a difference if I cut 1 from watercolour paper so that it would go on the bottom and it would be the same height as the panel that I added on top because that's watercolour paper. To be honest with you, I'm not sure it really made much of a difference, but in my head, I thought that it might. I did cut 3 from white cardstock, but I'm actually only using 2 because I forgot that I added the white cardstock piece onto the back of the tag, so that's already too high and I didn't think I needed any extra dimension than that. So I can just pop that in, just making sure that everything's going to fit okay and that the tag on top is going to fit nicely on top of that as well before I adhere anything down. So this is going to create an eclipse look. I did do an eclipse technique not that long ago with embossing folders, and I will have a link to that in the top right hand corner. So this is kind of like a more traditional way of doing it, I suppose, with the stamping and the inking rather than the embossing folders, but I really love the look of both of them. So I've just placed the tags inside, adding some glue tape onto the back. I did save the inside piece of the tag that I cut out in case I wanted to add that inside, because then that would kind of complete the entire look, but I decided that I didn't think I really needed it. You probably can't really see much in that tiny little gap there in the tag anyway. So then I can just add some more glue tape onto the back of the tag with the stamping on. Just making sure to add a lot of that adhesive. I do add quite a lot of adhesive, but I don't want anything to come apart. And then I can just place that down, and I just want to make sure that the stamping lines do match up with each other, and then I can press that down. And I really love that you can create 2 different looks here. You've got the card with the eclipse look, and I really like that added dimension with the tag in the middle. And then also you can have this as a standalone tag as well if you wanted to. I really love both of them. I do think they look really pretty with that rainbow ink smooshing. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hello there, crafty friend, Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.